College hoops on the hardwood. Click that like, hit subscribe. Had a good night in college basketball last night. Got lucky on that St. John one's, not going to lie. Needed a little bit extra there to get that. But either way, they get across there in college hoops. We did drop the Alabama game. Alabama just, Gonzaga's good, man. Gonzaga's good. That's the thing. You can't bet too much early in the year in college hoops. A lot of these neutral site games, again, these rosters have completely flipped over. Transfer portal has changed everything in college basketball. So that compounded with one and dones is just a much different beast than college football is. But getting into it, getting a little better at it. Hey, not a bad start to the year. 11-5 in college hoops. I'll take it. And again, we've been very passive and almost cautious here in the beginning. So here we go. Let's hop into it. Tuesday, a lot of early games. I'm going to try to get this out as quick as I can, but not going to touch on them all. But one game I do want to touch on in the early window here. I want to talk about Iowa State at Creighton. Now, Iowa State's main guard, he's going to be out. Iowa State opened up 9.5 last night. They're down to 6. They're still getting 71% of ticket count, 57% of the handle. Creighton getting 29% of ticket count, 43% of the handle. That over-under sets at 150.5. 73% of ticket count, 84% of the handle is on the over, 27% of the ticket count, 16% of the handle going to the under in this one. Now, listen, Iowa State, again, had that game with St. John's last night. It was a thriller coming all the way down to the end. Iowa State, that team is really good. Now, listen, they can shoot the basketball, play really good defense, really scrappy. I was really surprised how they met the physicality and the speed of St. John's. Now, that makes Iowa State 5-0 on the year. That was their first game really away from Ames. Creighton, on the other hand, they're 3-2. And Creighton, they've been on the struggle bus. Lost to Baylor last night, 81-74. Creighton has not looked as good as some thought they would be. They also lost to Gonzaga earlier by 27, which it's looking like there's no shame in that whatsoever. That Gonzaga team, like I said, man, they are legit. Now, Iowa State's averaging 93 points per game. That's where Creighton's only averaging 77.6. Iowa State giving up 66.2 points per game on the defensive end. Creighton giving up 70.4. Listen, if it was that 9.5 or 10, I think I would have felt a little bit more about it. They're taking Creighton. Now, listen, again, I'm well aware that Lipsey is out for Iowa State, but I don't think he's worth 3 points. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I think people are jumping on this Creighton bandwagon here a little bit too much. However, Creighton is 10-5 straight up their last 15 games, but they're just 1-5 ATS in their last 6. They are 6-1 ATS their last 7 against Big 12 opponents, but Iowa State is 8-1 straight up their last 9. I feel like Iowa State here gets the win. The cover, I'm going to stay away. If I absolutely was forced to play the game, without a doubt, I would take Creighton plus the 6, but just going to be a stay away for me. A game I do like, especially in a money line parlay, is NC State. Now, look, they're just 7-13 ATS over their last 20, but they're 15-5 straight up their last 20 in the month of November, 4-1 straight up over their last 5. They're playing a Boise State team that's just 1-5 their last 6 versus ACC opponents, so not a very good record there. Right now, NC State's laying 6.5. You're over under 155.5. 50% of ticket count equaling 57% of the handle to the over. The other 50% of tickets equaling 43% of the handle to the under. Now, as far as NC State laying that 6.5, 77% of tickets and 83% of the handle are agreeing with it. Boise State played out of their minds last night. They pushed USC all the way to the brink. I should have gave out Seton Hall. I like Seton Hall catching a bunch of points against NC State. I didn't do it. But I do like NC State here tonight. Obviously, they're averaging 20 points more per game than Boise State and only giving up 4 more a game. NC State, really talented team. In our breakdown beginning of the year, I talked about how I just loved how this team gets up and down the floor. I like an all-red money line parlay. I like NC State with St. John's money line parlay minus $1.25. That's going to be a play for me today. I also think if you find another partner for NC State to dance with, I get with that. I like NC State to get across the finish line here and win this game. 6.5, I don't want to lay that. Again, you're going to have to find a partner to put them with, but I'm a big fan of NC State tonight. Moving on, St. John's and Baylor. Now, we just talked about it. St. John's 9-2 ATS their last 11, 13-3 straight up their last 16 overall. Now, Baylor is 5-1 straight up over their last 6. They're 4-0 this year. Got their first win away from home last night. We just talked about that. They beat Creighton by 7. St. John's 3-2, losses to Alabama, losing by 1 last night to Iowa State. Really struggling here. Now, St. John's averages 8 more points a game, but gives up 2.5 less here. And the Johnnies in this spot, when you look at St. John's, again, they just bad shot selection down the stretch there against Iowa State. That little floater in the lane, not sure what was going on there. I think St. John's, again, just too many unforced errors. Iowa State played really well. Not going to take none away from them there. But again, in this situation, Baylor beat St. John's last year by 1 in overtime this same time last year. Listen, I would have to take the points with Baylor, but again, I love St. John's in a moneyline parlay with NC State. Also looking at St. John's in a moneyline parlay with like a Michigan there. I think that's got good value. I like some of these favorites. I just don't like the points they're laying. Again, this is it would be Baylor plus 6.5 or St. John's in the moneyline parlay, but I got St. John's moneyline going in a lot of stuff. I like them in that. I think they get home for us. Again, click that like, hit subscribe. Moving on, next game on the board, you got Seton Hall at USC. Seton Hall catching 6.5. You're over under 146.5. 65% bets, 85% of the handle to the over, 35% ticket count, 15% of the handle to the under. Now, as far as that 6.5, 71% of tickets, 92% of the handle is taking it with Seton Hall. 29% ticket count, 8% of the handle is laying it with USC. They're laying the points. When I look at this game, USC 7-2 ATS their last 9, 5-0 their last 5 games, but against the Big East, they're just 3-8 over their last 11. Seton Hall 3-6 ATS their last 9, snuck up as a 7-point dog and got the win last night against NC State. Huge kudos to them. Seton Hall played really, really well last night. You got 2 undefeated teams here going at it. And this should be a good one. Should be an absolute good one. Now, Williams, the guard for Seton Hall, questionable whether he goes or not. Right now, Seton Hall is averaging 75 points per game on the year. USC 94.4. Seton Hall giving up 57.8. Their defense been good. USC giving up 77. So kind of comparable there. Listen, again, I think USC, you put them with St. John's, same thing. These laying a bunch of points here in these neutral site games, you got to be careful. I would lay it with USC here. It would be lay it or nothing, but I like USC with St. John's in the money line parlay better. That's going to be the play I roll with on that. UC San Diego versus Bradley. UC San Diego laying 1, 5-0 on the year, 4-0 ATS, facing Bradley, who's 3-3. Now, San Diego 91-76 beat Temple last night. Bradley beat Princeton 88-64. But I love this San Diego team. Now, they've lost some guys from last year's team, but they're still averaging 85.4 points per game, as where Bradley's only averaging 75. 69.8 points per game is what San Diego's giving up. 69.5 for Bradley. Give me San Diego -1 as a play. I like them tonight to get home. St. Bonaventure at North Carolina. Now, look, UNC's laying 11.5, and they're catching 88% of tickets, 69% of the handle. This will be North Carolina's first true game away from home. All 5 games, they're 5-0, but they've all been in the friendly confines of the Dean Smith Center there at Chapel Hill. Only 12% of tickets and 31% of the handle going to the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure. Now, St. Bonaventure 2-5 ATS their last 7. But again, 5 straight wins, but they're 4-10 the last 14 versus ACC opponents. St. Bonaventure 6-0 though in the month of November. UNC 12-4 ATS over their last 16 games and 8-0 when playing an Atlantic 10 opponent. So again, 2 undefeated teams. matching up in this one, but this is the first game away from Chapel Hill for UNC. Now, these two teams have never met up, but when you look at it and you dive into it here, St. Bonaventure might be able to hang around, averaging 78.4 points per game. UNC averaging 10 points better, 88 points per game. The Bonnies are giving up 68 points per game as to where UNC is giving up 63. Now, look, the big thing, this is in Fort Myers, Florida, but North Carolina, you got depth perception, all that. They're really getting ready for Michigan State, who they'll play right after the Bonnies. I like the Bonnies plus 11.5 here to make it close. Listen, this North Carolina team hasn't been good on the road under Hubert Davis. I don't see that changing. I like the Bonnies plus 11.5. Another matchup of two unbeatens in an absolute fantastic game. Tennessee, they've been rebuilt, but Rick Barnes has a team that could be right back in the Final Four, at least Sweet 16, facing the Houston Cougars, who were in the national championship game last year. Cougars and Vols both come in 6-0. Now, this, again, neutral site game here. They just played in the tournament last year. Houston beat them 69-50, put it on them. Tennessee last night, Rutgers, they absolutely pummeled them 85-60, as to where Houston should have gave this out, man. It really dumb thing on my part. I looked at that Syracuse line, and I was like, man, you got to take Syracuse plus the points. I didn't play it. I didn't give it out. It was a huge mistake. Now, Houston was able to wheel back and get the win, 78-74 in that, but they were on the ropes most of that game. Tennessee averaging 89.2 points per game, about 13 points per game better than Houston, who's averaging 76.7. Now, Tennessee also 14th best defense in college basketball, 61.5 points per game. Facing the number 2 defense in college basketball, Houston, 56.8 points per game here. This one's going to be an absolute amazing game. Can't wait to watch this one. Tennessee, 2-5 ATS over their last 7. Houston, the same, 2-5 ATS over their last 7. Neither one of them cover a whole lot, but, man, they're both on a 6-game winning streak, and they play really good basketball. Houston here on the money line, Mazadar 65 is the play. Houston's laying 3.5, 133.5 is the over under, 71% of tickets, 56% of the handle going to the over, 29% ticket count, 44% of the handle going to the under. Now, Houston laying the 3.5, they're getting 73% of tickets, 62% of the handle, 27% ticket count, equaling 38% of the handle in Tennessee. But again, one of my favorite plays of the day, I'm going to lay the $1.65 with the Houston Cougars on the money line and take them in that game. Click that like, hit subscribe. 2 more to get into. Want to talk about Kansas State and Jerome Tang's group finally at full strength, headed to number 25 Indiana on the road. They're catching 10.5. 60% of tickets, 60% of the handle is on the hometown Hoosiers. 40% of tickets, 40% of the handle on K-State. Your over-under sets at 163.5. 62% of bets, 88% of the handle going over. 38% of bets, 12% of the handle going to the under in this game. Now, look, Tang finally got, like I said, he's got his whole crew at full strength. Going to be a big game for them today. I like what they can do on the offensive side of the floor. Kansas State really can push tempo. They got, unlike last year, Kansas State has a group that can really shoot the basketball. Remember last year they had a group that was, for lack of a better word, that was a suspect team, right? Kansas State really struggled to score. Even more importantly, they struggled to shoot the 3 ball. They fixed that. They went out and got the big dog from Memphis. I like Kansas State here plus 10.5. It's a lean, not an official play, but it's a lean. They come in 5-1. Indiana 5-0. When you look into it statistically, Kansas State's averaging 92.8 points per game, 88 points per game for Indiana. K-State giving up 79.5 as to where Indiana giving up 17 less. Indiana, 23rd best defense in the country, 62.4 points per game. K-State's a lean, something to keep your eye on. Again, non-official, hey, let's dive in play. But I like the lean there with them. Michigan laying 5.5 against Auburn. Now, Michigan comes in 5-0. Auburn comes in 5-1. Michigan, 5.5 is what they're laying. 162.5 is the over-under. 60% of ticket count, 71% of the handle to the over. 40% of ticket count 29% of the handle to the under in this one. Now, Michigan's getting 58% of bets, 57% of the handle, 42% of tickets, 43% of the handle to Auburn here, the 21st ranked team in the country. These two teams played back in March Madness, 78-65. Auburn got the win, but Auburn, a lot of guys from that group are gone, including Bruce Pearl, but his son's doing an okay job here, the young 38-year-old taking the helm. But listen, Dusty May's crew at Michigan is loaded. They're averaging 90.6 points per game right now. Auburn, 91.8. Now, Michigan, they're only giving up 68 points per game, 2 points less than Auburn here in this one. When I looked into it a little bit more, and I was looking at this Auburn-Michigan game, Auburn, 5-0 against the spread, their last 5. Against the Big Ten, Auburn is 7-0 ATS, but Michigan, like I said, they're on that 5-game winning streak. I think it's an hour or never. Listen, I like Michigan with St. John's. I like Michigan with NC State. I'm following the money line parlay trend here. Hate to be a square, but that's what I like. If it was about points, then yes, I would lean Auburn in this game. But listen, I like some of these favorites. Just don't like the points laying. For me, I would take the 5.5 or you put your money line parlay. A dog I do like with the points. I like Ole Miss today, +5 against Iowa. They're only getting 40% of tickets and 33% of the handle. Here is the Ole Miss Run Rebels. Now, both of these teams come in 5-0, Iowa and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is averaging 82.2 points per game here on the year. Iowa averaging 90.2. Now, Ole Miss giving up 65 a game. Iowa giving up 62 a game. The fact I'm getting 5 with this, I like Ole Miss. Chris Beard, one of my favorite coaches in college basketball. Ole Miss +5. I love that play today. I'm going to fire off with them. Again, click that like, hit subscribe. Let's run down through leans and then actual plays. Plays, I love Ole Miss +5 today. Going to get home with that. I lean Oregon money line. I know we didn't touch on that, but I lean them -130 over San Diego State. Also, I lean Auburn +6, but I got Michigan and St. John's in a money line parlay. I also got NC State and St. John's in a money line parlay. I lean Kansas State plus the 10.5 at Indiana today. I also like Houston -1.65 on the money line, one of my favorite plays of the day. I'm going to be betting St. Bonaventure +11.5. I also have the USC Michigan money line parlay that I'm putting there. I lean Syracuse +5.5. And also Creighton, I'm off that game. Again, if I was getting 10, I'd like it, but just a no play there for me. Again, click that like, hit subscribe. Break the Board Sports, where we give you stats, trends, and information to help you become a better handicapper. God bless and happy handicapping.